If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest edition of the Business Outlook podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Narvaiz, Journal Business Editor. I want to start off by thanking our sponsor, Central New Mexico Community College. On the show today, I have Chris Baca, the president and CEO of Yes Housing and also the founder of YDI. We talk about his early days in the nonprofit sector. We talk about the state of affordable housing and some of the projects that Yes Housing is currently working on. Hope you enjoy.
CNM is truly one college with infinite possibilities in tech and data sciences. CNM offers programs where everyone can learn about software, apps, or how to build websites. You can also choose from AI programs and machine learning, the Internet of Things, and so much more. CNM, one college, infinite possibilities, and a proud sponsor of the Albuquerque Journal's Business Outlook.
Chris, pleasure to have you here. So you're the chief executive of Yes Housing, but I want to start off by talking a little bit about your personal journey. So where did you grow up? What early experiences shaped your path into sort of the community development work that you do now?
Yes, I'm born and raised in the South Valley, kind of real old style. Delivered by a curandera or a doula, whatever you might call them now, at home. 11 brothers and sisters in a small little house in the South Valley, and grew up hard scrabble, not in the sense of a hard life. It's just that with 11 kids, 13 people in a household, it was tough economically. But my father was a hardworking man, and my mom was a good mom. So we got a really good grounding from our parents in terms of how to comport ourselves with respect and dignity and work hard. That was really the basis for all of my life, has been patterned after my parents' own abilities to survive really difficult times. They were born in 1905 and 1915 in New Mexico, which is, it might as well have been 1805 and 1815, because in the intervening century, at least in these smaller communities south of Belen, time had been frozen. There was nothing modern about it. So we grew up in that with that kind of background, with really rooted in the older Hispanic communities of New Mexico. And so from there, went on to all the valley schools, the ones that aren't supposed to be successful. You're not supposed to be successful if you go there. Kid Carson, Ernie Pyle, and Rio Grande High School. And I was able to get into the University of Albuquerque, got my undergraduate and my master's degree. And straight out of there, I got a job based on my experience as a youth counselor for an upward bound program at the university. And I was hired for a little effort to do a neighborhood drop-in center. And that kind of got me into the whole social services realm. I was preparing myself to go into work in the corporate world. That just wasn't my destiny, I assume, because my path led me to this little drop-in center in a aptly named area that was called Dead Man's Corner. So that was my very first experience in terms of actually running an organization. It was a ragtag little group with 8 people, and we made something of it. It was really, we really needed to expand our horizons if we're going to be able to really serve the needs that we were being confronted with. That's kind of the short version of my story of how I got into the nonprofit realm.
Yeah, no, Chris, I always get really excited when I hear someone else grew up in the South Valley. I grew up in the South Valley off of Coors and Gun Club. It really has that small town feel, even today, which is something that I don't live there anymore, but I really miss. So. So, talking about that group, it sounds like you're speaking of YDI, which you founded.
Yes. It was a little drop-in center, and we called it the Southwest Valley Youth Development project. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
I was 23 years old. I really didn't know a lot. I knew a lot about youth work. I knew a lot about the area. I didn't know anything about a profession in terms of social work or outreach workers or clinicians or any of the things that were really being demanded of us. Intervention work, juvenile justice work. I didn't know any of that. But we had to rapidly learn because those were the issues that were being brought to us from the parents and schools directly. And so we had to really ramp up our game. I had to figure out, along with my staff, what routes we could take to really professionalize what we were doing, because we couldn't just do it just to, with talking to kids. There were so many other resources that needed to be mustered in order to address some of the issues that were being faced. And they were very, very, very serious. I thought I grew up poor. It was nothing like what I was seeing. I consider being poor just the fact that, sometimes we barely made it to the next payday and to buy groceries. Some of these folks were literally starving. I saw instances of developmentally disabled young people that was out of poor nutrition, not just having enough food. And, it kind of woke me up to, Chris, you didn't have it so bad. You ate, you had food almost every day. And so those things were a really wake-up call to me. Even though I had been raised there and knew a lot of the neighborhoods, I just didn't realize the depths of some of the folks that were living there, what conditions they were living in. And it was really like a wake-up moment for us. And we said, we have to do a lot more than what we're doing here. We can't just have kids stopping by and playing pool and, we get a chance to talk to them and figure out what their next steps are. We have to do so much more.
Yeah. So it's my understanding you were there for about 4 decades.
Almost 41 years.
Yeah. And so, about a decade ago, you came to Yes Housing. What sparked that move for you? And just for our listeners, Yes Housing works in sort of the affordable housing industry. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
The move, and then what it is that Yes Housing does.
Yes. During my 41 years at YDI, we realized that there was a lot of things we could do even after we built out a very large effort with 50 programs and 700 employees, et cetera. We were a force of many individuals with a lot of skills. One of the things we understood from just dealing with that with families is we could change individuals on a one-to-one basis, and then whatever we did, whatever service we provided, whatever intervention strategy we employed, they still had to go back home. Yeah. And going back home was a really tough thing because of the same things that I had mentioned earlier about being in very poor economic situations and really not safe housing. We understood that, okay, it's not enough just to try to save an individual's life. We have to try to change a community's life. Yep. And really it goes back to 1990 when we started Yes. I founded Yes Housing in 1990, around 17 years into my tenure at YDI. Mm-hmm. We said, what do we do about addressing where young people and their families are living, and all the substandard conditions we were seeing, and we were doing a lot of good work at YDI, and then sending them right back into the area that was a causal factor in their situation. Dangerous neighborhoods, really dilapidated homes, no infrastructure in those homes. We decided, well, let's try to do something about where they live. We knew nothing about developing housing, but there's a lot of things we didn't know what to do when we first started anyway. So it did not scare us. It's going to take us time. So from 1990 till the time I retired in 2014, those intervening 24 years, we became a very strong organization because then we knew I was able to attract top-notch professionals into the field, and we learned how to begin to build communities.
Yeah.
Really, we started with taking some of the poorer buildings that were in the international district that nobody wanted to take.
Yeah.
And we took those buildings and we did the best we could with what we had. But that was our entry into the world of multifamily affordable housing. And then we learned how to not just take a building and fix it up and try to make the lives of people there better, but to actually build new from ground up construction and give new modern homes with more amenities. And then we saw that we could actually then make greater impact on the community. And by doing that, we were able to establish an organization that now has built several thousand units of affordable housing.
Yeah.
So,
to me, and this is sort of a business term that, I hear often, it sounds almost like, between YDI and Yes Housing, it's almost vertically integrated in some ways.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So some of the programs, the complexes we're building, we're including some of the YDI programs. We're going to build a project over on Coors, right in front of West Mesa.
Okay, yeah.
And in that complex, we're going to build about 244 units of apartments. But in assessing and meeting with the neighborhoods there, we found that one of their biggest needs was daycare.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my friends at YDI and says, do you guys have a Head Start center on the Northwest Corridor? And they says, we don't. We have our closest Head Start center in that area is way down at Sippy, which is at Paseo and Coors. I said, that's pretty far north.
Yeah.
I said, would you be interested in then build, if we got you some land, could you build a center there to build a Head Start center? It says yes. So we're in the process of working that out. So,
what is that project called, and when is it, expected to break ground, or has it broken ground already?
it has not broken ground. It's already entitled. In other words, we already have control of the site. Excuse me. It's called West Mesa Ridge. It's right in between Glen Rio and Fortuna. If you know where that, I'm sure you know where that is.
Yeah.
West Mesa is right behind that. Actually, it's right there, right fronting Coors. So, but we're also doing other projects that have other elements. We were able to, in the downtown sector, to build the Imperial Building. And we got into this whole thing of if we build a community, what amenities can we bring to a community? So it's just not just affordable. What can we bring that would benefit the greater community? At the Imperial Building, which is on 2nd and Silver, right downtown, one of the goals was to bring a grocery store.
Yeah.
There had not been a grocery store in the downtown area for 50 years.
Yeah.
So the goal was to have enough rooftops to be able to attract us a grocer. It was not going to be the big ones.
Yeah.
It was not going to be Walmart or Target, but it was going to be something smaller. And indeed, we were able to bring in a grocery store called the Silver Market, which has now been going on for 10 years. So from that we learned, okay, we can do other things. We can begin to build communities that have more amenities, not only for the residents that are living there, but to the greater neighborhoods. And we're doing a project right now on 4th and Fitzgerald, which is right near 4th and Candelaria.
Yeah.
And in that particular facility, we have 4 retail units, 4 live-work units, 21 townhomes. We're going to have I hope right next door a very vibrant mixed-use kind of project that'll have a bunch of little restaurants, maybe like a little a food hub. It's not small. It's the building we bought next door is 22,000 square feet, so you can put in a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
We're right in the midst of doing all the work on that one, but the Calle Cuarta project will probably do. Complete that project in August, so it's just around the corner, and it'll totally reshape that that piece of 4th Street that is very near the urban core. It's about a mile and a half from the urban core, and we will kind of expand what we were doing on 2nd and Silver onto 4th and Fitzgerald, and that is our model now. Is just being more comprehensive in what we build, not only just affordable housing, but what other commercial and small business opportunities can we bring?
Yeah. And you just reminded me that this is a project I wrote about actually last fall.
That's right, you did.
So, another question for you, Chris, is to date, how many multifamily housing projects between New Mexico and, my understanding, Arizona has Yes Housing worked on, and which projects are underway, like Calle Corta?
Okay, yeah, we have we built about 25.
Wow.
Projects, not only in New Mexico, all areas of New Mexico, actually. One of the things I'm proud of, we're all the way from Las Cruces to Los Alamos, from Gallup to Clovis, from Farmington to Hobbs, and then in Phoenix as well. So what's percolating right now is that West Mesa Ridge one that we just talked about. Our big project is going to be into the future on Rio Bravo and 2nd, on the east side of the river where there's not much. A whole master plan development that will have not only affordable housing, townhomes. We will have an aggregator facility to serve the 74 small farms from the area. What we want to do is bring fresh produce, healthier foods into our communities that lack that kind of ability to afford, or say, organic produce. If we can get that into our into the fiber of what we're building, then folks can actually buy fresh grown produce right nearby. We're also planting an orchard. We want fresh fruit and nuts as well. We want to make it pedestrian friendly. It's right near our rail runner, so we want to make it very transit oriented, so people don't always have to be in a car, and they can save on that and actually just take public transportation. The rail runner itself, it has connections to 60 bus routes. So you can go from the rail station, say you come downtown from there, and then you are able to take a bus to wherever else you want to go. And I think that helps a lot in terms of folks not having to have a car, and they can actually just use public transportation.
Yeah, and growing up in that part of town, for the longest time, it's really sort of been empty, but there has been, some new development. I think, there's been some gas stations built, and I think recently there was a Big O Tire in the area that was just built.
Some of these areas, I still live there, Matt. I've only lived in 2 houses: the house I was born in, and probably the house that I will die in. And it's in what they would call the projects. I've never lived anywhere else but a low-income neighborhood. I think the biggest attraction that when my wife and I got married and bought a home, why we were so attractive to this area is because it had sidewalks. So it has a sidewalk and there's a paved road. I think that's a nice house. So, and we've stayed there now. It's almost 50 years that we live there.
Maybe if you could sort of explain to me how these projects get funded. So, I have somewhat of a general understanding, but for our listeners, maybe you could break down how a project like on Rio Bravo and 2nd would ultimately get funded.
Okay. One of the things we look at is collaborations with units of government, either the city of Albuquerque, the county of Bernalillo, the city of Hobbs. They usually have needs, and they will put an RFP out, say, here's a parcel of land. We want affordable housing. That's mostly what they want. And we respond to that. It's a competitive process. If we win that process, then we're off to the races. We then have to go out and look for funding for it. What we first look to is low-income housing tax credits, because that's for the longest time, that's been able to be foundational in terms of actually us being able to begin what we call a capital stack. Right, here's your base. We have the land. It's entitled. We can build. Okay, what how many units can we build? Let's go chase some LIHTC. That's also low-income housing tax credits. That's also competitive. It's in a competitive round. Your point scored. If you point score above a certain, then you get an award. We don't always win that.
Yeah.
But but if we don't do that, we go to a 4% bond. But it's a little less that brings to the table, but then we're able to begin to build a capital stack. Then we're able to then say, well, is there legislators that are interested in the project? Would they allocate some capital outlay? Okay, now what's the gap? Let's go borrow that money.
Yeah.
And so that's how we begin to put a deal together. It's very much what any developer will do, but most private for-profit developers have their bank.
Yeah.
They have their capital group already that puts money into these deals. In our case, we don't have that, so we have to look for governmental opportunities that through RFPs, whatever they might have.
Yeah. From your perspective, what is the current state of affordable housing, the building of affordable housing? Has it changed in recent years, recent months?
Most definitely. It used to be that when we got a LIHTC award from through that whole competitive process, that alone would make up 70% of your capital stack. So we only needed to fill 30% of it, which is still a challenge, but it can be done. Now it's probably 51, 52%. So the gap has become even wider. And why is that? Well, material costs have not gone down.
Yeah.
Labor costs have not gone down. The cost of entitlements have not gone down. So it's not very conducive. It's not an easy time to build affordable. And when you build affordable, it's really not cheap.
Yeah.
Because the standards to you might think that it's because it's affordable, it's low-income housing, that it's pretty cheap to build. It isn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expectations that you build buildings that are going to last a long time, so the material costs are higher. There's tighter envelopes. There's energy efficient demands that have to be met. There are so many other things that you have to do. They have to be meet crime prevention standards. You have to have amenities on there. They're more expensive than people would think.
Yeah. How does Yes Housing measure success? I mean, you guys have built, quite a bit, since 1990. So, how is it that you guys measure, what is it you do?
Well, the way you measure that is how many people we can serve, how full those units are. I'll tell you something that'll tell you a little bit about the demand. We're almost always at 98% occupancy. We have very few vacancies. The demand is so great. So we don't have any trouble filling them up. The demands that we have right now, the challenges that we have right now are increasing costs, material costs. If a water heater goes out, if a toilet goes out, if a water pipe or sewer pipe goes out, if something goes out, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And so we have to save enough money in those projects to what we call capital reserve so that we can meet those crises. And speaking of crises, we have some projects in Roswell, and they were flooded just not that long ago. We had to relocate a lot of people.
Oh, wow.
And then actually work with FEMA to get the building back up to shape. And glad to report that all the folks that were displaced are back home now.
Good.
Yeah, but so we've had like storms in Clovis. The wind blows in Clovis, and we've had windows just broken. We've been close to fires up in the north, where we've had to move people because of the smoke damage that's going on. So there all the natural disasters that happen, we're not immune to them, and neither are our projects. So we have to be ready to be able to mobilize and address those issues as they present themselves. So we have to be very mobile, and have to be able to pivot quickly.
Yeah. This leads me into my last question for you, Chris. And, sort of looking ahead, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges for U.S. housing over the next 5 years?
Well, I think certainly costs are at the very top of our list. But we're we believe in ourselves. What we think where we have to go, and we're going to demonstrate this in the project in the South Valley on Rio Bravo and 2nd Street, is if we can build communities from the ground up, and if they can be mixed use, mixed income, if there are retail and commercial opportunities, if we can put open spaces and parks, if we can bring food nearby, I think the future of not just this community, but any community, is to plan better and plan communities not just where you're plopping down as many units as you can and trying to make money off of the number of units you put there, but how to plan a community that's livable, sustainable, and healthy. Health is at the very core of what we do. Mm-hmm. You've probably seen some of my stuff. On our sites, we have gardening beds. Yeah. We are able to supplement food budgets by growing our own food on site. And in that South Valley project, we're going to have a lot of produce because we're going to have 74 small farms. Yeah. We're going to have an orchard, so we're going to have all of that. If we build sustainability and livability and well-being into our communities from the get-go, we won't see the problems that we are seeing right now.
Yeah, Chris, I'm excited to see that project get off the ground, and appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.